Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz, and joining me to break down the 51st through 75th greatest shooting guards of all time, Aaron Schroeder.
Good to see you, Nate. What a thing to do. What a way to spend a Friday night.
It's one way to spend a Friday night. Do you ever think that people wonder, like, why don't these guys have lives? Like, the one's married, the other one has a girlfriend. Like, shouldn't they be spending time with them instead of doing this?
She's off with her family right now. She's occupied. I had the freedom to do such a project.
Oh, my wife is taking the dogs for a walk, so we've got like an hour,
All
maybe.
right.
Depends if they melt.
Does she know you're doing this? Is this a secret?
No,
It's a
she
secret
knows.
operation.
She knows.
Hey, some people do much worse things. You just get caught recording podcasts. It's like, what are you doing? It's like, cheating on you. I promise it wasn't a podcast. I was doing drugs.
I'm doing
Was it a
cocaine.
podcast? Was it a podcast again?
Porn. Yeah. No, just recording an NBA podcast.
Mhm.
All right. So I suppose what might be best is to look at some of the last guys that we discussed, because we ranked through 50. And so 45 through 50, we're looking at some older players, some ABA guys. We've got Richie Guerin, Ron Boone, Donnie Freeman, Randy Smith, World B. Free, and Michael Redd. So kind of our baseline for this is people who are worse than Michael Redd.
Worse than Michael Redd. Redd does have that single NBA season. He reaches a pretty high level for a couple years there. At this point in the list, you're lucky for a few All-Star appearances, 2 or 3 if you're lucky. If you get to All-NBA caliber, we're going to get rid of you pretty quickly.
This cluster of guys is a lot of also those guys that make one, or like, hey, they could have made one if they were in the other conference. And like, this is the 23rd guy to be named an All-Star, not like the 5th guy to be named an All-Star for these years. But we do have one notable modern name, which might actually be able to make a case to be higher than Michael Redd at this point. We want to get Jaylen Brown off the board first.
I think it's the right place to start. We had started this project long ago, really before Jaylen Brown's pretty incredible season this year. He took the most shots of his career, shot the highest percentage from the field for his career high in points, obviously, as a result, career high in rebounds as well. He was all NBA and in turn earned this massive extension, but also his run in the playoffs last year, averaging 23, 7, and 3, 47% shooting, had games in the finals where you couldn't find Jason Tatum, but you could find Jaylen Brown. He really dictated the pace for the Celtics. I think it's a great spot.
Locking them in. Ben, do you have a nomination for 52? I'm interested to see where you go here, because I do feel like there's like 10 to 12 guys here that are kind of better, and then there's like 25 guys that throw a dart at a board and give me a name. But who's your 52?
I'm looking for another modern player, another All NBA caliber guy. I went with Victor Oladipo.
Oh,
2-time All-Star, 3rd-team All-NBA. But that 2018 season, he's also the steal champ. Gets most improved nod as well. 23 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, 2.4 steals. Really doing it all. 34 minutes a night in that Pacers team is pretty respectable at 48 wins. I felt good about that.
I understand what you're seeing as far as the peak, that high end potential. And I think you probably take that season and match it up 1-to-1 against a lot of these guys' best years, and you're not going to find another guy with that best year. But that second All-Star year, what is it, like 35 games, because he gets hurt early.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's just never the same. He has another year where he puts up a good statistical average when he gets traded from Indiana to Houston to Miami, and like kind of bounces around. But we all know, we were here, we watched it. Those averages mean nothing.
He's basically hasn't played since 2019. We were halfway through 2019. Since that entire 2018 season, he's played in 138 games. That's 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and
Yeah.
2023. Gets you 138 games. You're looking like a season and a half essentially, and he hasn't really been good for any of that. But I like the All NBA season. That's pretty rare to find. If there's another guy with better longevity, I'd be interested.
Well, can I interest you in a Paul Seymour? We're talking about a guy from the early 40s, well, 48 to 60. He makes two All NBA teams, three All Star teams, misses out on two All Star teams just because the All Star hasn't been invented yet. But he's also one of the better players on the 54 finals run team. He actually potentially is the best player on a team that goes to game 7 of the NBA finals. And then in 55, he leads the team in minutes per game in the finals as well as assists per game. I think he's more like the third ish guy, but we're talking about one of the better players in the league, also a really high level of contribution to winning. And he hits a 42-foot logo shot in the finals, was to win, was it game 2 of 54? Yeah, game 2 of 54. So like great highlight to watch. Can't get that much film on him, but nice logo jump shot.
For sure. Those early 50s years, or really that entire era, is hard to pin down. He's 12th in points per game, 53 with 14.2. And these are pre-shot clock stuff. And really, before the league reacted violently to the shot clock being instated with just an absurd pace. So the numbers are a bit hard to knock down. But he has the points per game. He has the assists per game. If you think this is the right call, I'd willing to do it. I can do that.
Yes. All right. Locking him in at 52. I had Oladipo quite a ways down, just due to the fact that it's like 1 year and nothing else. Who are some of the other names you got on your board? Let's make some compromise. Let's make some deals.
I had Tom Gola, then Jeff Hornacek.
Okay, interesting. I had Doug Collins, Jeff Hornacek, and then Tom Gola. How far down is Doug Collins for you?
Collins is 61st.
Okay,
It's not too
okay,
bad though. That's not too bad. That's manageable. We definitely have some. By the time we do Hornacek and Gola, we can start to talk again.
yeah. So let's. Who'd you have first? You went Gola first.
Yeah, I did have Gola first.
I do love me some Gola, 5-time All Star, 1-time All NBA. He's kind of like Mr. Philadelphia before Wilt gets there. He's known as Saint Gola. He also is like he's a player that coaches and fans rave about that he played the right way. He's an offensive focused guard, while Johnston and Paul Arizin are scoring in a bunch. He's like a do everything player and a guy that quote unquote plays the right way. He was absolutely disgusted playing with Wilt, and like the story of a player just throwing a ball against the wall and then doing nothing and being asked, why are you doing that? He's like, well, that's our offense now that Wilt's here. That's Tom Gola kind of just being upset that this is what his life is reduced to now that Wilt is here. I could be really happy locking him in at 53.
That sounds good. You're looking at someone who also averaged 10 plus rebounds per game 3 times. So he's getting 15 points, 10 boards, and 5 assists. At 6'6", that's a really tall shooting guard for the
Hmm.
50s.
Oh yeah, I mean 6'5" was a tall power forward in the 50s, like early 50s. So the fact that he's 6'6" and a shooting guard in this era is giant. I think that means Jeff Hornacek's our 54. Sounds like we've got quite a bit of consensus there. You want to give me the Jeff Hornacek case?
Sure thing. With Hornacek, you're looking at a really high level impact player on offense. He just has one All Star appearance, but he's about 15 points, about 5 assists for his career. In Phoenix, his first stint, spends his first 6 seasons there. He's getting that 92 All-Star nod. He gets traded for Barkley, but that team was really good prior, making conference finals, whatnot. And really, he's the best player on that 92 team, at least in terms of playing the most minutes, scoring the most points. He's 20 points, 5 assists, 5 boards. He gets traded to Philadelphia. They trade him then to Utah, and he helps elevate that Utah team to some of the best offenses ever with him, Stockton, and Malone. It was this three-headed monster you really couldn't stop, and he had that impact on winning both in Phoenix and in Utah. And age 23 to 36, he's always putting up pretty good numbers.
That's he does have some playoff shortcomings. Um, just looking at that 79 and or not 79, 97 and 98 finals. He game 3 of 97, 1 for 9 from the floor. Game 5 of the finals, 2 for 11. Game 4 of 98, he's in 98, he's got 4 games shooting 37.5% or worse. Like, him falling apart in the finals may have been a decent reason why they weren't ever able to get past Jordan and the Bulls. And, the fact that he's being guarded by Jordan may have had something to do with that. But like that's important in my mind of like looking back at these guys and like Jordan impacted history. He doesn't beat scrubs, and we're talking about the 54th best shooting guard of all time, and Jordan kind of punks him, and it adds to people's legacy in my mind to talk about the guys that they beat and give them their props. And so you're 100% right. Before Jeff arrives in Utah, they are alternating 4th or 7th best offensive rating for the kind of 4 prior years. It goes 7-4, 4-7. And then once he gets there, they're the second best, and the first best offensive rating team because he adds that scoring element, that shooting to him. So I
He
love it.
adds that depth. In
Locking him in.
1997, that Jazz team, or sorry, the 98 Jazz are tied for the 4th highest relative offensive rating ever. That's plus 7.7. And he's
You know, we
starting all 82 games for that team.
yeah. No, I mean, we're not going to have a superstar here. We're not going to have a player that is going to lead their team to much of anything. What we're looking at with this cluster of guards is kind of, hey, second guard on a bad team, third guard on a good team, fourth person on like a great team, and like he is kind of third on a great team. So that's a good spot for him right here. Are you
How's
at the
Oladipo at this point?
still pretty far down? And I'm interested because I'm just kind of interested to hear a little bit more of your logic with him. Um, because in my mind, we've got a lot of other guys who I think hit 90-ish% of the peak, but have done it for like a lot more years.
I'm not sure about that. I think what we're looking at Oladipo is like a true number one guy on both sides of the ball on a team that almost won 50 games. And they pushed LeBron James and the Cavs to 7 games that year.
Mm-hmm.
You're not getting that from these other guys. Hornacek's not doing that, and those Suns teams are stacked with him. And then when he goes to Philadelphia, they win 26 games. Like that's what Hornacek's able to do on those teams.
Yeah,
Oladipo hit the different. Those Pacers teams aren't that great. He was dominating on both sides of the ball, and then it all went up. If he had one extra All NBA season, if he finishes that 2019 season, he's without a doubt even higher on this list. But
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if he has that second year, but he doesn't have that second year,
he was
and
pretty
like
good before that. I mean, he was fine. He's playing. I mean, that's not his first season.
yeah, and the 18 Cavs also were not one of the better Cavs. I mean, like I was looking back and trying to do the cross comparison between the two. And the year before he gets to Indiana, they're 42-40 with Paul George. Also, a very different starting lineup. There's a lot of other changes. It's not just Oladipo, but they're 42-40 the year before, and they get swept by the Cavs. Then they're 48-34 with Oladipo, and they push the Cavs to 7. but it's also the Cavs with Kyrie versus without Kyrie.
Yeah.
It's, I mean,
They push him to
Oladipo.
7. It's a legitimate 7 too. In that game 7, Oladipo has 30 points, 12 boards, and 6 assists with 3 steals on 10 of 21 shooting. He does
Four for
all he
nine from
can.
three. He
4
does.
for 9 from 3. And Lance Stevenson comes in with a plus minus of -19 when he's replacing Oladipo. They lose that game by 4. Oladipo's a +1.
It just
It's a big game
it's
7 against the team that went to the finals.
it's just so brief. I mean, it is
All right, well,
one
let's hang on a little bit
fantastic
longer.
year.
Hang on a little bit longer, but he shouldn't fall out of the top 60.
Okay, okay. I think I can squeeze him into the top 60.
All right.
Um, well, I guess really I gotta kind of ask you. Um, my next guy would be Doug Collins. What
Okay.
are your thoughts on Doug?
I feel pretty good about that. It's pretty brief as well, but he does have a handful of All-Star selections, and he's really, really good in the 77 playoff run, playing a ton of minutes. His efficiency is really great, and that's a huge part of why that team turns into a like kind of meh regular season into this finals run in which they almost take the top off the Blazers. I'd be okay with that.
If you look at him, he's got 4 All-Star appearances. He retires at 29 due to foot and left knee injuries. In 77, he's arguably the second best player on the 76ers.
It's
He's
McGinnis, but not in the finals. It's
yeah,
McGinnis for the
McGinnis
rest of the season.
for the regular season, McGinnis falls apart in the playoffs. Daryl Dawkins, I found this wonderful Dawkins quote about him. And it goes, a lot of people look at me kind of crazy when I say this, but if Doug didn't hurt his foot several times in a row, he would have been as good as Larry Bird. Doug could shoot, play defense, take charges, strip guys, and flat out run.
That's a hell of a quote. Right on
It's a
finding that one.
it's a quote from a teammate, so you can find quotes from teammates saying that Kwame Brown's the next Shaq during their playing time, but like,
Yeah, we
y-
should do that. And every time we find a quote where someone's like, "He's so good," find another quote where they said, "Actually,
hey,
like
sucks.
Kenny Martin was as good as Tim Duncan." You're like, okay, like maybe we shouldn't
Yeah.
trust these sources.
Yeah, but I think that gives you, kind of some context because he is actually a really good defensive player, and that's one of the things that a lot of guys talk about. He does have the passing and the shooting ability. He's just an all-around player, and he does it for 4 seasons, and I prefer that to Oladipo.
All right, that sounds good. So that would be
Um,
55 for Collins.
that'd be 55. My next couple of names, and this is going to be a preference
Hmm.
thing for us to kind of
Sure.
decide how much we care about it. Um, I guess not my next couple of names, but a few of my next couple of names. Ron Harper and Byron Scott, both guys who individually not great, not not as peak of seasons, but long careers and lots of contributions to winning.
Yeah, those guys had their moments in the playoffs, and especially Scott. I had Reggie Lewis next. I think we went for kind of different approaches here. When I started digging
Interesting.
deep, I'm looking for the flashes of brilliance, the single
Mm-hmm.
seasons of a high level where you kind of wanted
Mm-hmm.
more of a collective. But Lewis in 92, he's an all-star, all 82 games, 21 points, 2 assists, 5 boards, 37 minutes a night. Then come playoff time, knocks off Reggie Miller's Pacers, averaging 28, 4, and 3. Then goes to 7 with the Cavs in the second round, averaging 28, 4, and 4. I like that over anything Scott did. And that's a 51 win Celtics team that Lewis is leading. And you think about, just a side tangent, that Celtics group, the Celtics don't have as many championships as the Lakers. A huge part of that is that their two like saviors after the Bird and McHale era, they just die. Those
Yeah.
guys just pass away. And this is insane thing. I feel like people never, I mean, people talk about it, but it's never like, hey, remember when like the Celtics were really good and then both their really awesome players passed away in like horrible, tragic fashion?
I mean, you're 100% right. People do not talk about it enough. I actually was on TikTok and saw, I want to say, hey, Rob of B-Ball Archives. he was doing a bit on Reggie Lewis and how he guarded Jordan like as well as anyone because he is like a 6'9" shooting guard with length and speed. And it sorry, he's only 6'7", but it did get me thinking about his defensive prowess. I could be talked into it. I could see it. That 92 All-Star or 92 season in the playoffs, he is averaging 28 points per game, in which it's just a crap ton of points. It's for a first-time All-Star. I'm interested.
Take the bait. Do it.
Okay, I have to at least make the case for Byron Scott as a Lakers fan. I
Sure.
can't just let you sneak a Celtic in there when I'm
That's true.
trying to make a case for a Laker. Um, for Byron Scott, from 85 to 89, he's averaging 17.9 points per game. So a good 5-year peak. And he really comes into his own in that 85 season. Western Conference Finals, he actually leads the team in scoring. And this is not too uncommon. There's a number of series where he leads the Lakers in scoring, kind of after Kareem starts to decline. And James Worthy, I'll say it. I find James Worthy a bit overrated. But Scott's kind of like the nice blend that never gets the credit because it's Worthy takes over scoring. Yes and no. Scott also has a big role. He leads them again in 88 in the Western Conference second round. He leads them in a couple other series that I got marked down here. And he has like really big game 7 performances. Is that Western Conference second round, 29 points on 12 for 19, huge key starter on 87 and 88. And then I was texting you a little bit about this. He doesn't play in the 89 finals. He is hurt and misses it. And so the Pistons in 88 lose to the Lakers in 7. And then 89 they sweep the Lakers. And we always hear about, oh, well, the sacrifice and it was trading out uh Dantley for, but we don't ever really talk about how the fact that Magic plays basically one game and Byron Scott misses the whole series. And that's the Lakers backcourt, and the team just completely falls apart. It's closer to the Raptors winning in 2019 than I think any other series I've looked at.
I remember in the Bill Simmons book of basketball, he had like the best teams, and he said there's like 4 at the top, and one of them is that '89 Pistons team. And as much as I respect his opinion, I couldn't get there because of that. It's the same reason I didn't have the 2015 Warriors on my list, my top 30 teams ever list, and they were like 32nd or something. But who you play in the finals just matters to me. It
Hmm.
matters less than it used to, but it still matters to the point where I'm like, this team, their sweep of the finals is kind of fraudulent. But Scott just got finished taking it to the Suns with Jeff Hornacek on it. In Western Conference Finals, averaging 25, 4, and 2 on 58% shooting. I mean, he works perfectly with Magic on the wings. These guys are just getting open look after open look, and he's hitting them. But he's never an all-star caliber guard. He's playing
Oh,
28. He plays,
he never gets named to an all-star team.
yeah.
I would say that when we're looking at these guys and we're looking at a lot of these guys being like 1 or 2-time all-stars, a lot of that's conference and a lot of that's, who else
Yeah,
are
no,
you playing with
that's
it?
true.
And the
He's
West,
he's playing with Magic. That's one spot.
that's one spot. You got John Stockton, you've got Gary Payton, and out for those late 80s, early 90s. You've got some good guards out there, or that it started to take up those spots. So how you want to do this? You want to go with more of the peak, or you want to go with a little bit more of the contributions and the winning?
I'm gonna take the peak. I really am. I feel like that's the right thing to do. I'm comfortable having Scott pretty close, but Scott averages 20 or more points per game in a playoff series 4 times. Lewis does that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and it's in a quarter of the time. It's better, faster, quicker, sooner.
Okay. Can I just say though, I hate the argument of he did it in less time. Like you just go with he did it, but this like I've seen this crop up a lot of like Jordan won 6 rings in 13 seasons, and LeBron only won 5. And I'm like, "Uh, so what? You win when you're at your peak, and like that. It just, I, I think it's a dumb argument that doesn't actually contribute much.
Yeah.
If we want to say Reggie did it more, Reggie did it more. We'll take it. All right. So then, you want Reggie at 56, or I'd rather go Oladipo at 56.
Okay, let's do that then. We'll do Oladipo at 56 and Reggie at 57.
All right. Then can I get in Ron Harper and Byron Scott? Did you have those guys like pretty much back to back, or did you see much of a split between them?
It was Harper and yeah, that's those guys are coming up. That's the right move. I am kind of interested. My very next guy is Dan Marley.
I've got Dan Marley just behind them, but ahead of where I had Oladipo and Reggie Lewis. So I could be talked into it
Okay.
if that's the preference. Three-time All Star. Kind of really only has like 4 good seasons.
But he's always good on defense. The offensive punch is what gets him the All-Star appearances, but
Yeah, it's really interesting reading about him at different points in his careers, and I've got books at like different intervals, and the Thunder Dan, like my book in '92. It's a lot about how explosive and how athletic and how attacking he is, and how he's just gonna burst past you. And hey, you can't give him space because he's got the shot, but like maybe you give him space that way you don't end up on every kid's wall on a poster.
yeah.
And then my book on '96 is where it talks about him. It's like, yeah, you're gonna live with him burning you sometimes, but like, do not give up that shot because he's now a little bit older and he's aged and he doesn't have it. Um, but one of them has this passage on him that he can do it all. Handles the ball with confidence, rebounds well, plays relentless defense, and there is no downplaying the emotional lift his work ethic, all out hustle, and physical style provides for his teammates.
That's the kind of player we're looking for at this stage.
Boom,
So would you like to do
58.
Scott and then Marley, or Marley and then Scott? Or who'd you like more?
Um, I initially went Harper, Scott, Marley. I just wasn't gonna let you slip a Celtic over a Laker without making a
yeah,
case.
making a scene. Sorry,
And
so what have we decided?
I realize Harper is also a Laker, but like he's a Laker, kind of, but not in the same way Scott is a Laker. I could do Marley at 58, Ron Harper at 59, and Scott at 60.
That sounds good. Ron Harper, such an interesting career. Starts off as the super athletic guard for the Cavs, this feisty young Cavs team, transitions over to purely a bench guy, more of a defensive specialist, and he was always good on defense. But I've never seen someone's offensive responsibilities go from pretty heavy to basically zero. But contributed to winning at both levels.
Yeah. Or was he end up with 5 rings, 3 from the Bulls, 2 from the Lakers? It's really quite dramatic because he goes from 20 points per game to what's the drop off? It's like 9. It's like one of the largest single season drop offs without like a massive injury I've ever seen digging back on players' careers. And he just wants to win. It's the self sacrifice. It's, hey, I could probably be an all star on a 30-win team. If you stripped away Mark Price, you stripped away Larry Nance, Brad Daugherty, like, yeah, he could get 25 points a night and maybe be named an all star, but they're kind of meaningless. And he says, I don't want that for my career. I want to win. And so goes and plays in Chicago and then follows Phil Jackson to LA. And there's a play, the Shaw Shack Redemption. It's a lob to Shaq basically from Brian Shaw, but it's a classic, and you can find highlights of it. It's one of my favorites to watch.
Shawshank Redemption. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. All right. So we have that's 60, 15 more spots. And Nate, do you know the 4 All NBA guards in 1984?
1984.
Mm-hmm.
Whew. I do not.
Can you give me give me 3 of them, and I'll tell you the 4th?
I mean, I'm gonna assume Magic.
Yeah, first team.
84 is Jordan's draft year, so it's not Jordan yet. Um, gosh,
2
Sidney
point guards.
Moncrief.
Yeah, he's second team. You're missing the other first teamer.
I'm missing the other first teamer. Um, God, it's just such a,
One of the
a
best.
big.
He's one of the best players ever. You're familiar.
Why am I not thinking of this?
We talked
I,
about him like
I
5
just
minutes ago.
we talked about 5 minutes ago.
Like 10 minutes ago. No, we didn't. I don't know if we referenced his
No,
name, but referenced his team and his winning and
I'm I'm drawing a blank on guards. I'm thinking of all of the bigs. I'm like thinking Larry Bird, Doug, Julius Irving, Moses Malone. Man,
we talked
just what?
about Magic got hurt, and then the other team won. That other
Oh,
team,
Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas. But that's 3
Yeah.
All NBA guards. But the 4th is Jim Paxson.
Mm, interesting. You're making the Paxson case here.
The Paxson case. I just thought that was really impressive to be in the conversation with those guys. 84, he is all 81 games, 33 minutes a game, 21 points, 3 assists, 2 boards on a team that's able to win 48 games. He's their
You,
leading
you're
scorer.
you're digging into an interesting little brand here because there's those guys that are the first for teams. Uh, so Paxson is known as the first Blazer, and he's the first Blazer to score 10,000 points. He's one of the early guys. He's on the team. Or no, sorry, he's not one of the first. Sorry, I'm getting my guys mixed up. There's a whole cluster of firsts in here. Dick Van Arsdale, Jerry Sloan, but those are more 60s guys. I just
Yeah.
got it because he's the first Blazer to score 10,000 points because they keep falling apart with injuries. Um,
He's the post Walton, pre Drexler star, really, and that's it's not great and legendary, but that's why we're talking about him on the 50 to 75 pod. But he is an All Star in '83 as well, so he does have the respect prior, and I believe he gets hurt the next season, and then it starts to go immediately downhill, and he retires in 1990. But 84, 83, back-to-back All-Stars, a second-team All-NBA, pretty impressive stuff. Looking at his playoffs in 83 against the Lakers, first they beat Seattle. He averages 25 points, 3 assists, and 3 boards. They win a best of 3 in 2 games. Then second round versus the Lakers, 22 points, 2 boards, 2.6 assists on 56% shooting. It's an interesting kind of shooting guard that isn't really doing anything else but shooting at a high rate, scoring at high efficiency, but you still need those guys, and I feel pretty good about it.
could I interest you in Dick Van Arsdale, the original son?
No.
No,
No, you really couldn't. As much as I respect, I mean, those Suns teams are awful. They're terrible. He's the all-star on those teams because they win 21 games. As soon as those teams are anything worth anything, he's not an all-star anymore. He's not close to it.
that's fair. He's also playing with an expansion team, and that is
Yeah, there's a lot
just
of guys like that.
no other talent around him, and he's still putting up a very efficient 20 points per game. Like he is plus 1,000 true shooting added. It's like you know what we're looking at Jim Paxson, and he's dancing with efficiency lines like
Mm-hmm.
over under. And he's got a brief stint where he's good. I mean, it's 3 good teams, 45, 46, 48, or not that that's when he wins. They get 45 wins, 46, 48 in those early 80s. And then by 85, he's no longer a starter and just kind of falls off.
Which Van Arsdale brother was this?
This is Dick.
Dick
I
Van
think
Arsdale.
I think Tom Van Arsdale actually played more games at small forward. And so he is not on this list for us to consider. Either that or I might have just messed up. Yeah, he is classified as a small forward for us.
Yeah. For Arsdale, for Dick Van Arsdale, I mean, he's on some okay Knicks teams, and he's not really anything special. Then he gets dropped onto these Phoenix teams, makes 3 straight All-Star appearances, but because they win 16 games, then 39 games actually isn't too bad. And then back to, is that 40? Maybe I messed that up. Maybe you're onto something. No, they get Connie Hawkins. They
Yeah.
get Connie. Okay, yeah. They get
Yeah.
Connie Hawkins and Paul Silas. Pretty interesting they built up so quickly.
You
He
know, a
is an
lot of those
all-star on
teams
that team,
did.
but
Like Chicago,
yeah,
pretty
Chicago
quickly
got
after
good.
they. Yeah. All right. All right. So you're not a fan of Dick Van Arsdale. Can I offer you an equally meaningless season?
Sure.
And I say season. I could say career, but I'm just saying season. Jerry Stackhouse.
Stackhouse. That one season, I still think it's impressive. Grant Hill gets hurt pretty quickly, and that's like the only
Hmm.
other offensive option they had, and it's left Stackhouse to take every single shot. I'm not super into it. We can move on to the next guy I had, which was Allen Houston.
I have Houston.
This
Houston is the guy I have right behind Jim Paxson into my list.
Okay, Houston is a 2-time All-Star. We got that right, 2-time All-Star. In 2001. He's kind of the same blend of Paxton, where he's scoring at a high clip, but really not much else. But that 99 finals versus Spurs, he's 21 points, 3 boards, 3 assists. 43% shooting had been pretty good all throughout that playoff run.
Yeah. I think actually the more I look at it, the more I think about it, I'd kind of rather have Houston over Jim Paxson. Just
Okay.
from he is really impactful in the 99 finals run. Um, the 2000 and 2001 teams, which are the years that he's an all-star, they're both 50-win seasons, or I think it's 50 and like 40 something. 48. No, what is it? I know I wrote it down. 50 and 48. And he's the number one or number two guy. It's him and Latrell Sprewell. Also, from just the longevity of the score from 96 to 04, he's 19 points per game with 40.4% from 3 on 4 attempts, which is pretty high volume. I know it started to crank up at the
He's a
time,
great
but
shooter.
great shooter. Um, I could get him over Stackhouse. I could get him over some of these guys. I guess the one that I'm maybe a little bit struggling with is downtown Freddie Brown. I told you I was going to fight to keep Freddie Brown high.
Freddie Brown. I like Fred Brown. Is he the one that played only for the Sonics?
Yes.
Okay. I like that. I like him. Give me the Fred Brown case really quickly, because I have him pretty significantly back.
So Fred Brown, and this is not the case for him, but this is just an interesting fact I want to start off with. They don't have the 3-point line until his last year. He shoots 44.3% from the 3-point line.
I see it as his, not his last year, but some of his last years, like halfway through his career.
What is it?
He played from 71 to 84.
Okay, yeah, so just the first year that they have it. He's shooting 44 or that 1980. But like, man, if this guy went to the ABA, he's just gonna be jacking so many more shots. We also can look, and he is a high level contributor in 78 when they make the finals. The previous year, or not previous year, 2 years prior, 76, once again, 28.5 points per game. And I got a Pat Riley quote for him.
Sure.
He's the type of player who sometimes becomes uncanny. Even if you do a great job on him, he might get 30. I remember one night he got 19 points on me in the fourth quarter, and I was playing him end line to end line. Once he gets going with those jumpers, on the double pumps, he's tough to stop. And like that's kind of the story. I get better Lou Williams vibes from Downtown Freddie Brown. I know that's not like we're not talking about Lou Williams in this time, but like he's just a microwave scorer that can absolutely light it up for years.
He also is tied with Westbrook for the most points in franchise history. In 1974, March 23rd, against the Warriors, he dropped 58 on 24 of 37 shooting on Rick Barry's skull.
Yeah. Can we lock in Freddie Brown at 61, and then I'll give you
Sure.
Jim Paxson and Allen Houston back to
Sure.
back? Perfect. See, we're moving right along here. I don't know why you thought this was going to be so cantankerous or contentious or other words. All right. Well, at this point, the three highest guys left on my board are players. We've discussed two of them: Dick Van Arsdale, Jerry Stackhouse, and Steve Smith. Who are the top three on your board left?
I had Reggie Theus, Phil Smith, and then you know what? This is just someone I put a little bit higher than they should be. Just because at some point we have to acknowledge that defensive players matter too. And when you get out to this point, maybe being awesome on defense is worth it. And so I put Michael Cooper here just to talk about him.
Whoa.
That's
I mean,
that,
I get.
that's not that crazy. He was in the list of guys you sent me.
No, he was not.
Yes, he was. He should have been. He's okay.
He won.
5-time champ, 8-time all defense, defensive player of the year. At some point, we have to like talk about him. I put him this high to have the conversation earlier in the podcast and just start to float out that maybe defense matters too. I'm not ready for him quite yet, but
it does matter. But it's also like, if it matters, it needs to matter to the team. And like we just got through Byron Scott.
Yeah.
And like Coop is playing 25 to 30 minutes a night in the playoffs, and Scott is like 35 to 40.
Yeah, I get it. Maybe we'll sneak him in later. But I mean, like, I have Danny Ainge like 73. I'm okay taking Cooper over Danny Ainge. It gets dark. It gets dark and scary later on this list, and maybe a defensive specialist should get some shine.
I mean, to be fair,
I
at my
do
70 spot, I'm nominating someone who is 824th in the Matrix. So,
oh, is it Drazen Petrovic?
No, it's not. Although,
man, should we have had Drazen on here?
No.
Did we mess that up?
No. Drazen's great, but he's got great potential, I guess I should say. Because we're looking at those second 92 and 93.
He makes an All-NBA team.
He does in 93, but he didn't make the All-Star, so it's a slow ramp up that gets him there. And then he also kind of falls apart in the 93 playoffs. It's
okay.
I think he could make the top 100, but I don't think he'll make the top 75.
Okay. Yeah, it's 290 games, and the first half isn't even that special. Okay. All right. How about Reggie Theus, though? Because I do feel pretty good about that. I'm going to edit the Kings all-time draft I did with Jack after this. I ended up with Theus on my team.
You did a Kings all-time draft with Jack?
Yeah, I did.
When?
It was after the Lisco podcast. I did it right after. We went back to back. Yeah. Remember that? I could have sworn I said something.
No.
How much
time do you have on your hands?
Not that it was really short. I think I did Lisco's at 10, and that ended at like 11, and then Jack was noon, and it ended at like 1. It's an hour each. It's the Lisco podcast was 26 minutes at the end.
I know. It's just the prep work, the content,
That's the thing, man. I don't do any prep work.
Oh my god.
I'm not prepping for this shit.
Okay, well, you had to have done some prep work, Because
I did
I
a
was
little
much
prep. I already
lower.
had that project done, like
Okay.
my best kings ever, and so I kind of had that. But honestly, there's so few kings. Like I took Sabonis. He ended up taking Brad Miller, and that kind of left DeMarcus out to dry because we weren't going to play two centers. I ended up taking him later on because I couldn't say no. But
How
hey,
many
he took
players did
Brad
you
Miller.
draft?
Um,
Wait, you guys took Brad Miller over DeMarcus
hey, I
Cousins?
didn't take him. I didn't make that pick.
Terrible pick.
He took Weber, then Fox. I took Mitch Richmond, then Peja. You want to hear the teams?
Oh, is it only Kings from Sacramento?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry, that's an important. It was 86 on.
Yes. Because
Would
I
you like
mean,
to
I'm
hear the
thinking, I'm
teams?
like, you got to go with like Oscar first, or not Oscar.
No.
You got to go with Archibald, or like there's older guys. No, no,
Yeah.
I'll hear it when I listen to the
Okay.
pod before I
Wonderful.
post it. Let's
All right.
let's keep going here, because we
Wonderful.
just locked in
Okay.
Allen Houston at 63. Um, give
The
me a
Theus
Reggie Theus
case.
case. I have him down at 74, so I don't like it, but
You don't like him. How heartbreaking. With Theus, two-time All-Star, All-Rookie in '79.
how heartbreaking. You should be
His
heartbroken.
his career pretty much blazed flat over the 80s, so it helps him a bit. But I'm pretty sure, in the top 5 for assists per game in that decade. Someone that could get you 20 points, but also upwards of 8, 9 assists per game. He's given 2 All-Star nods in Chicago. But the most important thing is he makes the playoffs in Sacramento for the Kings, in Sacramento once, in Kansas City the other time. That's really impressive. But the other thing is he's making the playoffs in Chicago just one time, which sucks, but he's still getting all-star nods. And that kind of matters to me. I find it impressive when guys, despite their team not being very good, are respected and given that nod. Because the 83 Bulls win 28 games. Because, I mean, Nate, can you name me a 1983 Bull? I'll give
I just
you an
want.
hour.
No, probably not.
Dave Corzine, Dave Gradewood, Orlando
Oh, yeah,
Woolridge, Quentin
Orlando
Daly.
Woolridge. Yeah, I could have gotten
He
there.
maybe he plays
Well,
57 games. He starts in just 38 games. He's not playing. He's playing
it,
20 minutes a game. Mark
he's Jordan's that first
Olberding.
season. He's kind of Jordan's number two, where like
Yeah.
they're the two wing combo. And I did a video on that not too long ago.
Rod Higgins, Ronnie Lester, Tracy Jackson, Dwight Jones, Dudley Bradley, Juwan Oldham, Mike Bratz, Larry Keenan, which I don't know how he made it this far, and Larry Spriggs. Spriggs?
Larry,
Yeah,
Keon's only
Spriggs.
3 years old in '83. Like
Yeah.
that's not that surprising. So
But it's just Theus doing like his best, and they give him that all-star nod. I think that's really impressive. Um, yeah.
is it more impressive than Jerry Stackhouse though? Come on,
That's just the
Stack
one
scoring close.
season for Stackhouse, and the thing is Theus is good for a really long time. I mean, his entire career, he really never dips below like 16 points per game. He averages for 1,000 games 18.5 points, 6 assists, and 3 boards. He's always contributed. Even at the very end, 91 in New Jersey, he starts every single game, 18.5 points, 5 assists, 3 boards.
He's just on such bad teams. Like,
Sure.
is it too much to ask that the teams get kind of better? I mean, he makes.
I mean, but look, at this point, you gotta. I mean, even like Jerry Stackhouse's Pistons don't make the playoffs, and Theus is. I just read you the roster of a team he was an All Star on, and that team is awful. Is horrible. You don't know any of those people.
No, but he never gets to play with better players. He never makes the team
He
better. He
plays
could
for
never
the
get a team to the playoffs. Like this
he
guy.
plays for the pre-Jordan Bulls and the Kings, Nate. The pre-Jordan Bulls and the Kings.
So
Be nice.
also when he gets to the playoffs, you want to talk about those shooting splits in the playoffs?
They're not great, but at that point, like he's getting focused on. They know what's coming. Because the
So
team around him sucks, Nate.
in 81, he's got that's Artist Gilmore. He shoots 44% from the floor. In 84, sure, he might have no one. We're talking 39%, 86, 39%, 89, 36%. Like, come on.
Yeah. He shoots 41% in the playoffs, but he only plays in 17 playoff games. These are such small sample sizes.
Also, 86 that year that he makes it with the Kings. The assists drop down to 6.3 assists, and he's 4.7 turnovers.
And Nate, that 86 Rockets team beats your Lakers. They beat
Yeah,
your Lakers, and they beat Magic Johnson and Kareem and James Worthy and Byron Scott. I'm
I'm
asking
not.
for Reggie Diaz to be. They handle the Lakers, and you're like, oh
Oh
man,
man,
Reggie Diaz couldn't get it done.
this guy that you're making a case for him being an all-time great because he makes the
I'm
playoffs. I'm
not.
like, yeah.
I'm not.
Well, I mean,
He's 64th. He's gonna be like 298th on our list. He's probably not gonna be top 300.
you actually want to know what he's in the Matrix?
What? Probably
291. So
yeah.
298. That's a solid guess.
See,
Um,
it's pretty good. I'm just saying for a team that if you're complaining about his playoff numbers dropping, your Lakers lost to that team. They beat you guys too, and you had Magic
yeah.
Johnson. That was an inexcusable loss.
Okay. Okay. You want to do this? You want to see what Magic did against them versus?
I'm not worried about what Magic Johnson is gonna do. All right, we need to move on. We need to pick somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Thoughts on Steve Smith?
I like Steve
Where'd you have
Smith.
Smith?
I had him at 68, which is
So,
pretty close. I just
I
had
know you like Steve Smith.
the only people I actually had over him was Reggie Theus, Phil Smith, and Frank Ramsey.
Interesting. Frank Ramsey. I wasn't expecting a Frank Ramsey case.
I'll give it to you.
Can we do the Steve Smith case?
Sure.
Wonderful longevity, great career. On 98, he's arguably leading best player on the Hawks. That's a 50-win team. Uh, he's upped his scoring into basically 25 points at that point in time. He's a little bit underrated as a 3-point shooter. He's shooting about 34.5%. But then when he gets to play with other players, just be a spot up shooter, or like an O2 that jacks up to 47%. Um, it's a great long career. We're talking 83 career win shares. We're talking true shooting average of 653, and it is the best player on a 50-win team. That's my case for Smith.
Yeah. He contributes to winning those Hawks teams really interesting. I'd be okay with that.
All right, Steve Smith, 64. You did make a good point with Reggie Theus that I didn't quite look at as much was his playmaking. Also, was that 1,000 games? Does he hit 1,000 games? I think
Almost.
that should be
When I drafted him for our Kings all-time draft, I took him as a point guard.
interesting.
He does play quite a bit of shooting guard, but for Sacramento specifically.
All right, we'll put him in there at 65. We may have to revisit that at some point. But he's one of the highest guys left in the Matrix. He's not the highest guy
Can I
left in
give
the
you
Matrix.
the Phil Smith case?
You can, but I'm interested because I looked at Phil Smith takes over the Golden State starting shooting guard slot after Jeff Mullins kind of slides, and I liked Jeff Mullins more, so I'm interested to see what you think with Phil Smith.
For Smith, two-time All-Star, he is a champ in 75. Like he's not playing very much, but he takes over that starting role and they win 59 games. They win a title in 75, but that team isn't very good.
Mm-hmm.
Rick Barry goes batshit crazy in the playoffs. I mean, he's averaging whatever amount of points.
I want to say
Let me
that's
find that
Jamal
sentence.
Wilkes.
In 70,
Yeah,
sorry, in 75, the playoff numbers. One second, let me find that.
I
That's
want to say
they win
it is Jamal
48
Wilkes'
games.
rookie year.
Yeah.
And Wilkes also has a really strong playoffs. He arguably has the second best, and you can kind of see Wilkes taking off as the season progresses. So I
Mhm.
think that does help, and that's a little bit why they're not as good in the regular season, and then better in the playoffs. Just a slight plug.
So for Smith, they win 48 games that first season, 75. Then they would go up to 59 wins in 76, playing him all those minutes. 75 prior, then 76. Look at my stuff together. And it's a huge part to do with Phil Smith being second minutes on the team, 20 points per game, almost 5 boards, 4.5 assists. Come playoff time, him and Rick Barry are both averaging 24 points per game. Smith shooting 7% better from the field. And because of the regular season, he's given second team All-NBA, and he's 7th in MVP voting. 2 people give him first place votes.
Interesting. Not catching those votes.
I think people could see that when Smith takes over for that shooting guard position, the Warriors are much better. And Barry takes a pretty significant slide come playoff time from really just that season in general. From the 30 points a night he was doing in 75 to the 21 points a night. And it's a more balanced team. Gus Williams is even on this team. They end up losing in 7 to the Suns. Anyways.
I was looking at the two. I was looking at him and then Jeff Mullins. And it's really funny because both of them are not good. It's like 18 minutes and 14 minutes a night, like kind of shooting guard by committee during those playoffs. And so you look, and afterwards, yes, they get better with Smith. But if you kind of look earlier, Jeff Mullins is kind of stabilizing the ship after Rick Barry leaves. He is one of their top scorers. There's, what is it, like close to 23 points a night? For 69 to 72, it's 22 points a night. 21.8. That 69 playoffs. I found this really interesting. He in the first 2 games, he plays 46 and 45 minutes. He gets 36 points in game 1, 20 points in game 2, and then just drops off. I couldn't find if there was an injury there or what, but it 100% seems like an injury because he's down to 20 minutes, then 15 minutes, then 21, and then they try to put him back in game 6 and play him more minutes, and he's back up to 21 points. I do think, just looking at their history and kind of their waves, I think Mullins means more to the Warriors pre Rick Barry coming back. That would be my case for Mullins over Smith. Is just, as an individual, he seems to contribute at a higher level and for a little bit longer than what we're seeing Smith do.
All right. I'll accept it. It's a good case.
All right. So if we lock in Mullins at 66, I think you still don't want to talk about Van Arsdale or Jerry Stackhouse.
I think it's Phil Smith time. Just throw Smith right behind him. And then we could do so who are your next 3 guys? I have Michael Cooper floating around just ominously, being like, hey, I won Defensive Player of the Year one time. Remember me?
Yeah.
And
you're gonna make me fight against a Laker, and I don't like being in this position, but I'm just not ready for role players yet. I'm not ready to, like, hey, let's bring in Marcus Smart. Like, we just talked about Jaylen Brown. Like, we still have other good players that, if you put them on the same team, Cooper is still the role player behind these guys.
How about Jason Richardson?
What's the case?
He's a pretty good player.
He's a pretty good player.
Mike Dog circle.
Very limited playoff success. The 1 year he has it is that We Believe Warriors team, where it's Baron Davis and Steven Jackson. He kind of takes a back seat. He drops from, 22 points to 16 points per game.
He takes a back seat. And Baron Davis is way higher. You got to readjust your focus. Guys here, if they have playoff success, they're playing with Magic Johnson.
Yeah. Well,
Like you're not getting like, oh, but what they do in the playoffs. These guys aren't good enough to make the playoffs. They never were. Like they never were gonna thrive in those roles. They didn't have the chance to play next to great players. It wasn't gonna happen. What I can tell you though is when it does happen, they're still pretty good. In 2010, age 29, Richardson on the Suns, running with Steve Nash. First round, 23 points, 7 boards, 1 assist. Second round, a sweep of the Spurs, 19 points, 5 boards, 1 assist. Then the conference finals versus your Lakers, 49% shooting, 16 points, 4 boards, 1 assist. If he had the chance to play next to great players, he's gonna bring it because that's how good he always was. We can't really judge them on whether they're making the playoffs or not. If these guys are averaging 20 something points, 25 something points, they're not making the playoffs. That's the Jerry Stackhouse thing. If you're getting big numbers, the team isn't good because these guys aren't that caliber.
but so in that case, shouldn't we look for the guys with the biggest numbers? Shouldn't we look for the guys that are doing the most with the least? Like yeah,
There's a
Stackhouse
mix.
and Richardson don't. Neither of them have playoff successes. So then
Yeah.
let's look at their regular seasons and who is just going to be the better player. And in my mind, Stackhouse showed he was the better player with that 2000 season. He does a lift that we never see Jason Richardson
Yeah.
get to.
I'm almost there. There are other guys that like I have Eddie Johnson and Ricky Pierce after that, and those guys have some really nice regular seasons as well. I'm okay
Yeah,
going. Do you want to do how about Stackhouse? It's 68, and then Richardson.
you know what? Just because I want Stackhouse at 69, we'll put Richardson at 68. You're muted, but I'm assuming you're laughing.
Of course, I'm laughing. It's the funniest joke in the world.
Although, can I take that back? I'm sorry.
Sure.
I want Stackhouse at 68, and I want to make the case for Dick Barnett at 69 because I think
You
it's
you
even
can't
funnier.
you can't make this list off of jokes, Nate. You can't make this list off of joke. I'm not gonna
So,
let you be a child about our list.
so I had Dick Barnett at 63. Um, this is
It's fun. It's fallen too far.
well, no, it's half the fact that his name is Dick and it's the 69 show. But I do want to talk about Dick because he's a one-time All-Star, but he's a two-time champion. And he plays big minutes for the early Knicks, the 70s Knicks championship team. And he's their third leading scorer throughout the regular season, second in the playoffs. You know, it's Willis Reed and it's Walt Frazier and it's Dave DeBuscher and it's um who's the other guy? Bill Bradley and Crazy Russell. But he's kind of on that
Cassie
same
Russell.
level.
Cassie
Cassie
Russell.
Russell. I don't know why I always call him Crazy Russell. It's a much better nickname. Like, the name was Crazy.
That's true.
Um,
But I think his real name is Cassie,
yeah, I think
like
it is
official
too.
first name.
But he's just a dead eye shooter and a, a lighted up scorer who also plays defense and hustle. He starts off in the NBA. And like the early 60s ABA kind of has this quota of you can't have that many black players. Um, it's kind of a unwritten or unspoken thing. And after 2 years, he jumps from the NBA to the ABL and wins their championship. And the ABL is this really interesting league that's forms for like a season and then 6 games the next year.
Who are we
But
talking about?
Dick Barnett,
Dick Barnett. Okay.
Dick
No,
Barnett.
that's a good case. That's a good case. Okay. I thought we were talking about Van Arsdale, and I was very confused for a second
No,
because he
no,
also starts on the Knicks. He
I,
plays
I
the net. I was like,
switched.
yeah, and then my head just did not. Okay.
I
All right.
switched. I switched
Yeah, Barnett. No,
which
I'm
Knicks
okay
up.
with the Barnett case. All right.
And then so he's there for a year, and then that league basically folds. But he's one of the best players in that league. They win the championship. When he comes back to Syracuse, they sell his rights as a player to the Lakers for $35,000, which was the highest a player rights had ever been sold for at that time in the NBA. And he's the high scoring sixth man. He's the third best player, but he's kind of the Manu Ginobili of those Lakers teams. And yes, he does have some rough closeout games against the Celtics. Like, man, I could 63 his game 6 closeout, his 65 game 6 closeout, his 69. He has some rough series enders, but the Knicks players and the Lakers players all speak incredibly highly of him and what he meant to those winning in teams and just his ability to score.
And he has the craziest jump shot you've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
He like kicks his legs out under he like jumps and like puts his knees forward and brings his feet back, and it looks like he's about to sit down, and then he flicks it.
Fade away.
Yeah. All right.
Also, just a wonderful trash talker.
So, because you're a child, Dick Barnett at 69.
Dick Barnett 69, Jason Richardson 70, Gary Stackhouse 68.
All right.
Are we at the point where I can talk you into Dick Van Arsdale now? A lot of what you said about Reggie Theus,
yeah, sure,
making an all-star team on bad teams applies. This is the same, very similar case. And you've got someone who is like a good scorer, someone who is well above true shooting averages. All right, so if we lock him in, that gives us 4 more spots. A few interesting names. Who are kind of the next couple on your board?
My next guy is Ricky Pierce. I have Ricky Pierce and I have Eddie Johnson, but I think Ricky Pierce has got to be on here. He's a 1-time All-Star, 2-time Sixth Man of the Year. He's backing up Sidney Moncrief. In 1991, he makes that All-Star team. He has 20 points, 2.2 assists, 2.4 boards at 20 minutes per game, but he still makes the All-Star team as like a pure sixth man, which I thought was really impressive. He also was traded mid-season, which again is really strange. But it's mostly longevity from 86 to 94. 615 games, 18 points, 2 assists, 2.7 boards.
It's amazing to look back at that. There are so many seasons where he misses a ton of games. Like 83, he plays 39 games. 85, 44 games. 88, 37 games. 95, 27 games. 98, 39 games. That's what? 4 years, 5 years? Yeah, 5 years, 44 or less games. And he still almost hits the 1,000 games played. Like, that's a lot. I wasn't sure quite how to break it down. I had him and Paul Presley that I was kind of debating between who I think needs to make this list, because Paul Presley is the shooting guard.
Pressy. There's no out.
Pressy.
Just Pressy.
It's like 100 degrees where I'm at, man. I'm in a sweat box, basically. My house doesn't have air conditioning. We're going for an hour. Turned off the wall unit an hour ago. Just slowly heating up.
I get it. Pressy's really good. I thought about him in my like statistical top 10 thing that I've been doing. He comes in 1980, 86. He comes in like pretty close to 10th. I think he's like 12th or something because he's 14 points, like eight assists and 5 boards. I'd be okay with either one, honestly. I think in my head I might have been mixing them up.
No, they're the one flows into the next. As it's Brian Winters falling into Paul Pressey, flowing into Ricky Pierce, and they're all very similar players. My Paul Pressey case is I think he's the third or the fourth. He's the third guy because it's Moncrief and it's Terry Cummings and it's him, and they're 59, 57, 50 win teams. And Pressey is like, cool, you guys are kind of scoring. I'm going to focus a lot more on the defense. Like he's only 14 or 15 points per game during that time, but he's 7 assists and he's all defensive first team 2 of the years and all defensive second team in 1 of the years. And so he's like, I've got these other ways to contribute. Moncrief is not a traditional point guard. He's never been the highest volume passer, and Pressey really helps that out a lot.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I got a notification my mic got disconnected. Not sure what that's about.
Weird.
I was kind of fucking with it, but I guess maybe that's why.
Don't do that.
Can I just make a quick Eddie Johnson case,
Yeah.
just in case I can convince you? It's purely longevity. He plays 1,200 games at 16 points, 2 assists, and 4 boards a night. That's it. That's the entire case. He plays forever, 27 minutes a night from 82 to 99.
Can I ask which Eddie Johnson are you making this case for?
The
There are
not
two
awful
Eddie
person,
Johnsons.
the not awful person one. This is the 6'7", 215, 1989 sixth man.
Okay, he's a small forward.
Ah, bullshit. Yeah, that's true.
That's so I was like, what is this Eddie Johnson case that you're about to make? Yeah, there was one drafted in 78, one drafted in 82. The 78 one is a shooting guard. The
So the
one that
shooting
you're
guard
talking.
is like the serial rapist, and the small forward is the not that.
I didn't dig into the shooting guard one. He was far enough out statistically.
The
So I
shooting
will
guard
neither
one did
confirm nor
like
deny that he is a serial rapist.
yeah, the shooting guard one. If you look on the small forward Eddie Johnson's page, or Wikipedia page, it says like that happening to the other Eddie Johnson like had a huge negative impact on his life because he's like people hated me for a little bit because they thought it was me. And the other guy like had a bunch of issues on the off the court, like drug issues in the NBA, and then like raped and killed this little girl when he got out. And anyways,
Yeah, yeah. I
okay,
did look that up. Can confirm that is the shooting guard Eddie Johnson that is a piece of shit, not the small forward Eddie Johnson.
all right.
Whom it sounds like you've got a good case for, but we just have to save it for that
Too
time.
bad, yeah, too bad. Okay, so we have Van Arsdale was 71st, right?
Yes, Van Arsdale 71. I got some older names. I've got a couple guys left on my list, and just let me know if any of these names interest you. Hershey Hawkins, Danny Ainge, Ralph Beard, Frankie Bryan, Jerry Sloan. Then we already talked about Paul Presley.
Let's do Pressy. Let's do let's do Ainge. Let's do Ainge.
Okay. Ainge, I had. He was my 69 initially, which I think is equally funny. Really, there's just no fun, not way for it to be funny. But like Ainge has a short 5-year peak. Really, it's probably shorter than that. But 87 as a Celtic has some really big nights. He's their new starting guard. He's got a 30-point playoff performance. He's got a few other really big nights. He's got 1,000+ career games. And that 3-point shooting in that era was hugely valuable for him.
He makes an all-star team, and he plays for the Kings. That's important. That's important. He plays for the Kings at some point.
He's an all-star with the Kings. Or wait, no, is it with Phoenix?
Yeah.
No, that's Boston. It's 88 in Boston that he's
Yeah.
yeah. It does
Okay.
seem a
So
little bit strange
Ainge
that they trade
is
off Danny Ainge. What do they even get for Ainge? They get Joe Klein, Ed Pinckney. It's just a little bit weird that he's an all-star and they're like, let's trade you for Joe Klein.
Okay, so Ainge is 72nd.
Yes.
How about Daryl Carrier?
I couldn't quite get there with Carrier. I did get to him.
Dude, you gotta, if you look up him, there's like a podcast episode he's on. He is like the most Southern guy ever.
Really?
Like, yeah, he's from Warren County, Kentucky, college in Western Kentucky, high school in Bristow, Kentucky, played for the Kentucky Colonels. He led the league in 3-point percentage his first 3 seasons. And these are teams that are making the playoffs.
Yeah, his 4th year, he actually shoots better. It's just like the whole league has gotten better at threes.
Yeah, the first 4 years come play in the playoffs. He's 21 points, 3 assists, 3.5 boards in 43 games, and they make the finals. 71 in the 71 finals, they lose to the Utah Stars, and he's 23 points, 3 boards, and 4 assists. If I remember correctly, and it's been a while since I've gone over this list, but In that podcast episode, he talked about camps he used to hold, and he said that he would take like I don't it was something like 10 threes left-handed or 100 threes blindfolded or something, and he's like, "Yeah, I could make 87% every time. I guarantee you that." And like it was just awesome. I'll text you what it is after this. Or I could even listen. It's 1 minute long,
Yeah,
I would say.
I will.
Oh,
I will track down and listen to it. Is do you want to make the case for Daryl Carrier?
one sec.
We're a visual podcast now. We have
I'm
this.
listening to something. You're talking over him. Stop it, Nate. Okay. He would have shooting clinics with Easy Ed McCauley, and he would tell the kids he could make 27 out of 30, and he said he did it every time. From 3. Is that cool? Is that cool enough?
It's cool. It's cool. It's just it's the early ABA play that it's a high level of early ABA play that teeters off rather quickly. Like
Yeah.
talking 72, he plays 23 games. 73, he plays 16 games and it's done. Like 68, 69, 70.
Yeah, but
Good.
71. Okay, but the thing is, he's already old though. By 71, he's
Yeah.
30 years old. He's 30, so that's like I feel like it's like a natural progression. And in that
Okay.
71 finals, there's like Cincy Powell, Dan Issel, Louis Dampier on his team. Like on the other side, Willie Wise, Zelmo Beatty, Ron Boone, guys we've already talked about and ranked. I mean, they're all ahead of him.
Okay, but here's the thing: why isn't he in the NBA?
Because he wanted to play in good old Kentucky. That's the answer. He wanted to play in Kentucky.
Is that legitimately the answer? Like, what
I'm
was
pretty
he?
sure.
What was he? Because the ABA starts when he's 27, and he's not wrapped up in the college betting scandal. Like, I can kind of give a pass to some of these guys, but it's not like he's an unknown name. Like, in my mind, he gets these early ABA stats because there wasn't good players in the early ABA, but he doesn't make the NBA because they were like, there are other better players that we'd rather have right now. And maybe it's the gimmick of the 3-point line. And like, since the NBA didn't have a 3-point line, and that's where he is scoring his, I mean, I guess he's getting 20 shots up a night and only 4 of them are from 3, but he's shooting
I have no idea why he didn't join the NBA. His college stats are interesting. He was the 76th pick in 64. He averaged 26 points a night for Western Kentucky.
Was he wrapped up in the college betting scandal?
I don't really know.
I mean, it's normally something that they list pretty heavily on guys. I don't think that would just sneak past you.
Yeah.
He played AAU ball, which is not the same as AAU ball now. AAU ball is like, it's amateur, but it's like on the level of like a G League compared to the NBA. Like AAU used to be where adults played at this really high level.
Frank Ramsey led a finals in scoring.
That is cool.
Entire playoff run in scoring. How about that? You want to throw him in there? 7-time champ.
Yeah, let's put Frank Ramsey in there. Can you give me a little bit more?
Sure thing. Ramsey is the original 6-man. He is pretty much credited with inventing that role. Arbach is quoted by saying he could have come off or he could have started. He was good enough to start, but they felt that him running the second team was most beneficial to winning, and that's what they did, and they won 7 titles.
Works for me.
All right.
Can I make the case at this point? Because I want to get this guy into the 75. He is my outside of the top 500 in the Matrix pick. Good old 824 in the Matrix. Ralph Beard
he's the Olympian we talked about earlier.
Yes, he
prior
is
to the podcast.
Both actual Olympian and then a Indiana Olympian. Back when that franchise existed, it's him and it's Alex Groza that get banned for life for a college point shaving scandal. And before he gets banned, I we were discussing this pre-pod. I said think about like Penny Hardaway in that there was no question this guy was going to take over the league. Him and Groza were the next Mikan and Jim Pollard. He was the do everything wing guard to Groza's mobile pivot style, and he's first team All NBA his second year, and he's second team his first year. It's a great what could have been, and it really broke him. The ramifications of cheating, which it's point shaving. It's we don't pay college kids to play basketball in this time, and so they have to do a little something to make money. And they're getting like more for shaving points off of one game in college than their like entire NBA yearly salary, which kind of makes me wonder how it didn't get caught sooner. Because you kind of read about it like, oh yeah, 10 grand to shave points on this game. Like, I don't make 10 grand a year. Like, yeah, of course I'll do that. So I'm very sympathetic to him, and it's just such a high expectation, and we saw a little bit of it. He's out of the league in 2 seasons. The team is not overly good those 2 years. They basically just take the Kentucky college team, who they took to the Olympics, and then just throw them straight into the NBA, and they're fine. They make the playoffs. That's one of the years, both of the years.
The
But
Olympians in 50, when the league expands out into all three divisions, or they win like 51 games, like 51 and 17. The league is diluted, leaving the Lakers, the Royals, and the Olympians with Groza and Beer to just stomp on teams that would not exist in like one
mhm.
season.
Do you like it?
Okay.
You like the
No, I
54
do.
case?
I do. So 50, sorry, 54, 74.
74.
So 75.
I have
What's
another name I
yours?
want to make a case for.
Okay, I don't like any of the names left, so I'm really interested to see what you have.
Uh, Frankie Bryan, the original Flash,
Okay.
which I forgot to check when Marvel Comics came up with the Flash, but like I gotta imagine the Flash was either brand new or what. I guess Flash is DC Comics. Um, yeah, anti-spell. Okay. Flash is a nightclub in DC. That is not what I was trying to find in here. Uh, why is that hard to find? Scrambling. When was he invented? Tell me. Oh, 39. Okay. So maybe he wasn't the original Flash, but he's pretty close. So Frankie Bryan is on one of those teams that gets crushed and is out of the league, the Anderson Packers. But do you know how they did the 50s playoffs?
Not off the top of my head, no.
1950. They have 3 divisions. And they decide that they're going to do 4 teams from each division, and the one's going to play the 4, the two's going to play the 3, then they're going to go up, and that ends with 3 teams having won their basically division, or what we look at today as conferences. And then they're like, okay, the team with the best record then gets a bye, and the other 2 teams have to play. So it's a very weird way to do the playoffs. And his team did not get the bye, but he gets his team to kind of the semifinals. It's very weird. And he's by far the best player. And like the rest of that team, I think only 2 guys are still in the league the next year. And then he gets, of course, picked up by the Tri-City Blackhawks, which were also just god awful. And he is by far their best player. The
Can
year
I
after,
make the case that he should be higher, actually?
sure.
Just looking at it, I mean, we didn't really acknowledge he's all NBL second team in 48, and then 49 all NBL first team, and they win the NBO championship. So even looking at just the NBA stuff.
So I don't like the 49 NBL stuff because it's kind of a really weak time for that league. That is when the leagues flip, because the NBA has stolen half the good teams. They've taken
Yeah.
the Lakers, they've taken the Royals. Like it's basically just Syracuse. And
But is it worth being better than Ralph Beard? Just flipping that because it's like
no,
it's like 4 seasons of existing over two.
it it is 4 seasons of existing. It's just it's not quite as high in my mind, and
Yeah,
looking at it, maybe to make
I
the
don't know.
case.
I mean, Brian is a two-time All NBA second team in 50 and 51. In 50, Beard is in the league. He's not an All Star, I don't think that existed yet. 1 second. No, he's not All NBA. Is what I meant.
Beard is all NBA both years that he's in the league.
I don't see that. I don't see that. I see just first team in 51.
What are you looking at?
Look at his stuff, man.
I'm looking at Basketball Reference. He's second team in 50. Who do you see as the second teamers in 50?
1 second. I think you're right. Why? I think his Wikipedia is just actually wrong. That's interesting. Some of my teachers said
Not to trust
not to
Wikipedia.
cite Wikipedia. Holy shit! This is the first time ever I've been like, that's actually wrong. Yeah, it just says All NBA first team 1950. That is it.
Huh.
Weird. Anyways, well that throws out my case of just misinformation.
Well, it's a weird time in the league. But after that, he kind of goes on and he's with the Pistons, and the Pistons in the 50s make the finals a couple of times. Um, and in 55, like Larry Faust and George Yarley kind of fall apart in the finals, but it still goes 7 games because Frankie Bryan just turns back the clock, and games 2 through 6, he is the best Piston. Like he is consistently over those games. Yeah, Faust has a good game. Yeah, Yarley has a good game here and there, but like Frankie comes out of kind of nowhere and just has this huge impact for them. So it's early, but it's really good basketball. I would just say like slightly less good and less of a peak, less of potential than what Ralph Beard showed us.
I think he's a great 75th spot.
Perfect. Also, fun fact: he is Robert E. Lee Pettit's cousin.
That's just brutal, man. That's not a good look on Bob Pettit at all. It really isn't.
No,
I was talking to I was talking to my brother about how Dolph Shays' real name was Adolf, and I'm like, yeah, but he wasn't named after Adolf Hitler. That was just a name that people had at the time. That dude is Robert E. Lee Pettit. Like I don't even know who knows that. It was his middle name Lee before they were like, no, it has to be the full name. That's insanity. He's just another dude's name with his last name attached to it.
it's like why have the E? Like he could be Robert Lee Pettit, but no, they're like we don't want any confusion about this.
It's
And
just the
like
Confederate general. No qualms.
there is a fair amount of like mixed reporting as to whether or not he was rather racist. Uh, but like the Hawks organization was rather racist at the time. They like drove out a good number of black players. They're the last all white team to win a championship.
Well,
None
that's
of that
why
has anything to do with Frankie Bryan, but
that's why I don't win shit afterwards.
yeah, no, it's like, oh shit, we're gonna limit ourselves to just white players.
I
Yeah,
wish I could remember the exact school, but college football was desegregated at one point because like a black team came and played an all white team and fucking smoked them, and they were like, damn, like, and it was like it was a big deal in the South to have like your college football team. It was no like maybe we should reconsider some things.
yeah, yeah.
That's the best way to end racism is putting together a good sports team.
I mean, that's how the NBA got segregated was shit, we can't beat Mike and oh hey, the Globetrotters just beat Mike and maybe we should get some of them
Yeah.
on our team. Like, yeah. So early basketball is touchy at best, but I do think that we need to at least look at and consider because, man, if we're looking at a guy that led a team to kind of the finals, like the the pre-finals because it's this weird three, a conference finals. Like we would consider him really good nowadays. And if then he took over in a final several years later when he's near the end of his career, that would be something that we'd talk about. I mean, just trying to think of like if Chris Paul this next year just takes over for Golden State in the finals, you're like, holy cow, I did not see this coming. And it's really good. Like that would add so much to his legacy. And that's kind of what Frankie Bryan did. But because it's 58, we just
Before we go, Jaylen Brown at 51. Did we want to move him above Michael Redd like we talked about?
How high do you want to move him?
I feel like he's better than World Be Free, but it's not too far because Randy Smith is good.
I can get him. I can get him up a little ways. I can get him over Ron Boone, Richie Guerin. Maybe not Richie. Yeah.
You want to do below Birdsong?
No, he's got to be below. I think you're right. Maybe Ralph Smith is as high as I'm willing to go. Yeah, I'll get him over
Randy
Ralph
Smith or Ralph. That is two people you're combining into one person. Is it Ralph Simpson or Randy Smith?
It is Ralph Smith. I don't. Just looking at it, I think
that's not a person, Nate. The person doesn't exist. You're combining two people.
Randy Smith.
That's not a person. Okay.
Yes, it is. Randy Smith is a person.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
It is 10,000 degrees in here. I am podcasting from the sun, goddamn.
We're almost done. Okay, so Jaylen Brown below or above him?
Above Smith, below Donnie Freeman. He becomes our new 48. And Michael Redd drops down to 51. World Be Free is 50.
All right, to let Nate go turn his AC back on, let me read what we've done today. 51 is Michael Redd, then Paul Seymour, Tom Gola, Jeff Hornacek, Doug Collins, Victor Oladipo, Reggie Lewis, Dan Marley, Ron Harper. 60 is Byron Scott, Fred Brown, Jim Paxson, Allen Houston, Steve Smith, Reggie Theus, Jeff Mullins, Phil Smith, Jerry Stackhouse, Dick Barnett. 70 is Jason Richardson, Dick Van Arsdale, Danny Ainge, Frank Ramsey, Ralph Beard. 75 is Frankie Bryan. Tune in next episode for the small forwards, guys like Andre Kirilenko, Gordon Hayward, Jared Wallace, Bruce Bowen. Bruce Bowen is going to be on there. He's going to be on there. The Spurs were playing him like 49 minutes a game. They were. It was him and Duncan were by like they never left the court.
That cannot be true. Watch those games. Yeah, that's not true. That's just factually not true.
Don't listen, Nate. I'm not trying to be fact checked. Okay, I'm just.
So these are alternative facts.
It's better. He plays more minutes than Cooper for championship teams.
He does.
03 is 31 minutes a game. 05 is 35 minutes a game. 07 is 34 minutes a game. I think he's second. Like 05, they win 59 games. They come playoff time. He is third in minutes. It just matters that he was always out there. I don't think he'll be in the 75th, but he'll get in there.
I think small forward is also a deeper position. Yeah. Like shooting guard is it's weak. Also, like some names we didn't bring up in today's podcast, Zach LaVine, CJ McCollum. Some, are we really going to sit here and say that Allen Houston is 60 shooting or 30 shooting guards better than Zach LaVine? I don't know. At the moment,
at this point, though,
but
at this point, everything is massive. The smallest of differences.
Yeah.
One less all-star team gets you 50 spots pushed back.
Yeah. I always like to kind of think of it as like a pyramid, for shooting guards. You got like the Jordan tier. That is A. The Kobe tier is B. And I don't think there's anyone else on the Kobe tier. But then you've got like a a Wade and Harden. And while I think there is a pretty clearly Wade than Harden, y- you know,
It's Wade then Harden, then it's like Iverson and Gervin and Trexler, and then it's like it keeps going. And by the time we get to
yeah,
this like godforsaken place, it's pretty
yeah.
massive. All
The
right,
tier
Nate.
for these guys could be like 30, 40 guys deep. But
Yeah,
Aaron, where can the people find you?
possible chairs on TikTok.
Find me at the Hoops Temple Pod on TikTok or just Hoops Temple Pod on TikTok. Also, email us at hoopstemple@gmail.com. Love to hear from you, hear your thoughts. Yeah, check the email every day. Hit me up.